good look at this animal. What part of the world is his home? Where does this animal live? Where would you find this fellow living? Does this animal make his home in the desert, forest, plains, grassland, or the frozen Arctic? Well, this old goose knows where all these animals live. We'll tell you how he knows, too, because this is Zoo Parade.
Yes, this is Zoo Parade, brought to you from the world-famous Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, and presented by Beeman's Pepsin Chewing Gum. Follow meals with Beeman's. It aids digestion fast. And Dentine, the chewing gum that helps keep your teeth clean and white. Yes, this goose knows where the animals live. Here to tell us the why and how of this problem is Marlin Perkins, director of the Lincoln Park Zoo.
Hello there. Glad you could join us again today. You find us now today out here at the duck pond at the Lincoln Park Zoo. This is always a favorite spot of mine.
Mine too, Marlin. It's nice to be out here. And, I can almost feel a touch of spring in the air right now.
Yeah, Jim, I guess spring is just around the corner. And I don't think we know it any better than do all these ducks and geese out here. Because these old boys are some that really understand weather. Let's take a look at some of these old ducks and geese and see if I can identify some of them for you out here. See, we got quite a collection here, Jim. There's a Muscovy. That's a domestic one that's mixed in with a bunch of mallards right there. See the mallards with the males with a little ring around their neck, and the hens there with the solid color there. Mm-hmm. We've got a big collection of ducks and geese here, Jim. There's a whole bunch of teal and swans and ducks and geese and a whole group of them here. But I guess some of them aren't going to be with us too long.
Why is that, Marlin?
Well, Jim, this is the season of the year when the ducks and the geese migrate northward, and we have some free-flying ducks and geese right here. Oh. Down south, right now, there are ducks and geese and swans in their winter quarters, and before long, those animals are going to be headed northward. Well, there are some snow geese down there, too, and they're in the water waiting for that magical word that'll send them north, spring. Because they're going to go north along with all the other geese. They fly with the blue geese and great flocks like these. Jim, today let's let these geese be our guides as we visit the parts of the country they will pass over on their migratory flight. As we do this, we will see some of the animals that live in the various regions that migrating birds will fly over. Now, Jim, which animal do you think that the geese will see as they start their trip northward? This one? This one? This one? Or this one?
Marlin, it seems to me that it would be the owl that they'd see first, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be a kind of an owl that they might see, Jim, but that's not the one they're going to see first. The gold boys are first going to see a fellow right over here, and I think we ought to pull our wires around here and see this first animal that they're going to visit, which is a horned toad.
Oh, yeah.
Now, a horned toad is not too well named. They're horny, all right, and they have horns all over their body, but they're not toads. They're members of the lizard family.
Why is he going like that, Marlin?
Well, he's trying to push his way down into the sand.
Oh, and why does he have these spines all over him? There's a purpose for that, is there?
Yeah, those spines are protection for him.
And they relate to his being in the desert?
Yeah, they do, because, many desert things are spiny. Almost all the plants there are spiny, and lots of the small animals like this one, lizards at least, have spines on them. And they're there as protection both for the animal and the plant because they're to keep other animals from eating them.
Well, I've always wondered why the horned toad was so flat. I mean, he's just like a pancake, practically.
Well, Jim, you can tell almost from the thing he's doing here right now. He's trying to go down into the sand. And if he were a round ball, he wouldn't have much luck in doing that. He's adapted more for going down this way than he would if he were rounded.
He's pretty well camouflaged, too, isn't he?
Yeah, but speaking of camouflage, Jim, let's look at the horned toad as you'd see him in the desert. Okay. In the desert region itself, you have a hard time picking up horned toads because they're just hard to see. Now, do you see one in there, Jim?
No.
Well, look right down in the left-hand corner of the picture, and you're going to see his head move in just a minute. And if you see this, he's under that bush right there. See? You can't see him yet?
No.
Well, watch him now, because when he moves, you'll have to look quickly, see him...
Oh, yeah.
There he goes. You see, this is the sand country. This is the desert country of our great Southwest. And you'll find all kinds of unusual plants and mountains ringing this whole region of the country. This is a dry country out here, Jim. This is a country where where life is hard and where there is great conservation of water, because water is the all-important thing. You know, the clouds come over a thing like this and drop their moisture on the mountains. And when the rain comes down, it all literally disappears right into the desert itself because there's great evaporation there. You can see the ponds have dried up and left caked mud there, too. So water is the vital and all-important thing in this desert country. Even the plants themselves have few leaves, and they conserve their moisture and keep animals from eating into it by having spines all over them, like these barrel cactus here, and many, many other animals in this desert region. Even old desert tortoise, Jim, who finds a stream of rainwater, doesn't even bother to drink, because this fellow drinks his water by eating plants like the blossoms of some of the cactus here. This is his way of not only getting food, but water at the very same time. They seldom see water. Even this, the little rodents on the desert there, like the kangaroo rats and the horned owls that are like this baby, nesting in a spiny place. There are ground squirrels that have to seek the shelter of rocks and feed on the plants. And the caterpillars that feed on some of the plants have to be kept in check, so nature has made them very palatable to certain animals like desert iguanas. Desert iguanas run up and grab these caterpillars and just make a fine meal off of them. These curve-billed thrashers have their nests carefully concealed in the cactus itself to take advantage of the plants to keep the animals from getting at them. Old beaded lizard here, old Gila monster, has a bone in his skin to protect him. He's the only poisonous lizard in the world, and he lives in that desert region too. Bobcats frequent the desert section, and they're a special kind of a bobcat that is adapted for living in this hot, dry country. Rattlesnakes, as you well know, are common in the southwest part of this United States. In fact, they have their headquarters there. You know, Jim, there are more species of rattlesnakes out there than any place else.
Really?
And in order to show you a little bit more about rattlesnakes, even though this is spring is just around the corner, as we said, Jim, we've got a rattlesnake here that I had to keep warm. And I wanted to show you this rattlesnake outdoors today. It's rather chilly here in Chicago. So I have Mr. Rattlesnake here with some hot water bottles. And I thought if I could keep him warm here in the hot water bottles long enough to bring him out here, I could just separate him from that for a minute to put him in the natural-looking place here in the desert that you might find him if... Now, you can unbend. You're not that chilly here.
Oh, he's been warmed up by those hot water bottles.
He's quite warm. He's fully gone. Now, it's around an old pile of rocks, just as you see him here, that you would probably find old diamondback rattlesnake if you ever made a trip out into the desert region of the southwestern part of this country. Because he'd take advantage, Jim, of the little cracks and crevices down here. He'd sneak under these flat rocks and get out of the heat of the sun. He'd also find the pack rats and all the kangaroo rats and the ground squirrels and all the other creatures that themselves lived in this desert situation.
And all these animals are more or less dependent on one another in one way or another.
Yeah, well, I better put him all back in here, I think, with a hot water bottle, because I wouldn't want this old rattlesnake to catch cold, Jim.
No, I wouldn't either. It'd be a terrible thing. Well, I wanted to ask a question about that. While you're talking about the geese flying over the desert, they wouldn't actually come down and land on the desert unless there was an emergency, would they?
Well, I don't think they would, Jim, because you see, in the desert region, there's nothing to attract them there. There are no bodies of water that would hold succulent water plants, and so they would have to skin the edges of the desert if they came up from south of that and passed by some of the creatures we've just been seeing. Well, after he's passed the desert, old Mr. Goose over there will see animals of another region. many different kinds of animals as he continues his flight northward. As he flies north, the next area he passes will be the home of one of these animals. Will he pass over this fellow's home? Will he next see the home of this animal? Or will he visit the home of this bird? I'll tell you the answer in a minute, but first let us pause for a moment for some words of advice from Dentine Chewing Gum.
There you are, son.
Gee, thanks. Johnny Antonelli, New York Giants. Oh, boy.
Baseball is my game, but when it comes to dental care, I prefer to let a dentist talk.
Johnny, food particles not removed may breed harmful bacteria that cause tooth decay. So, to help prevent tooth decay, brush your teeth after every meal.
But I don't carry a toothbrush around all day, do you? So I'll tell you what. Let's all chew Dentine Chewing Gum in between brushings. That's to help keep your teeth sparkling white and beautifully clean. Here's what recent tests in 3 leading dental colleges proved.
Dentine removes food particles even a toothbrush often misses. Dentine significantly reduces acids that cause tooth decay.
This is Johnny Antonelli again. Get Dentine.
The chewing gum specially made to help keep your teeth sparkling white, beautifully clean.
Well, Jim, the geese have finally winged their way northward to the land of the prairie dog, the Great Plains region. This is little Poppy, our little prairie dog here at the Lincoln Park Zoo. And little Poppy is barking just like, that's where they get their name, I think, of dogs, because they're really not dogs, you know. They're members of the rodent family. And I think their name of prairie dog just comes from this habit of barking, like she's barking dog-like just at this moment.
But they are out on the prairies, of course.
Yeah, and they dig burrows in the ground like this. Now, Poppy, you... all right now. Okay. No, she doesn't want to go down. They dig deep burrows in the ground, Jim, and they bring up some of the dirt from the burrow and line it up around... Oh, Poppy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drop you there. That's all right now. And they line it up around their burrows so that they act as a dam to keep the water out, you know?
Oh, yeah, and that's typical of the prairie scene, these prairie dog villages, I suppose.
Yeah. Let me show you the kind of country where prairie dogs live. This great, vast grassland that you'll find in this section of the West where which is the home of the prairie dog. It's the waving, natural prairie grass that makes the home of creatures like prairie dogs. But not only prairie dogs live in a region like this, there are a few other animals, like pocket gophers, for example. This fellow may look like a mole to you, but he's really a pocket gopher. And he's digging his own burrow and pushing the sand out of that and putting it out in the open there. Well, old man Badger also lives out there in the prairie section. And where this prairie section, there's not much protection there. So where does Badger go? He goes down in a hole in the ground, too. See, he has to dig a burrow of his own, Jim. And he preys on prairie dogs and all the other small creatures that he can prey upon. Well, you see, Jim, jackrabbits live in the desert. And that old boy has plenty of speed, so he doesn't have to worry about a burrow in the ground. You know, there are a lot of other rabbits, too. Cottontails get out onto the prairie. And in years when the cottontails are disseminated because of disease or something, predators take over, or they too are affected. Now, let's see if we can get one of these predators. Excuse me for walking in front of you, Jim.
No, that's all right.
I wanted to get over here where our little fox is. This is a little gray fox. Now, would you just please move around this way? No, that's all right. Here. Gray fox, get into the prairies, Jim, by following up, that's all right, following up the rivers, because you know there are some rivers. You want to smell, Poppy? That smells like a prairie dog to you, doesn't it? They go up the rivers that lead into the prairie, and you know around the rivers there are trees. So the foxes, like this gray fox, would be following into the little glades and into the edges of the prairie, like to feed upon any of these small creatures like rabbits and jackrabbits and prairie dogs and all the rest of them. But one of the cousins of the fox is perhaps even more cunning in his ability to live and survive in the prairie region, that's the coyote.
Oh, yeah.
The coyote is sometimes called a prairie wolf, and has not only lives today in the prairie region, but has migrated eastward clear up to New York State and the lower New England region. So here's a pretty smart fellow that lives in association out there with a vanishing group of animals, the American bison and the American buffalo. There used to be millions of them there, Jim, but today they're found only in game preserves and in our national park regions. The pronghorn antelope is probably the fastest of all these animals in the prairie region here. And he really takes off at a speed of about 60 miles per hour. Those are some of the animals that inhabit the plains, the great stretches of rolling grassland that form a great part of our country. The geese may stop on these plains for the grass and the other vegetation, but soon will be on their way north again. Watch these fellows take off, Jim. Isn't that a beautiful sight?
Surely is, see.
They stop off literally by the thousands at some of these marshes in the North Prairie section. They almost form a cloud. Here you have snow geese and blue geese. You have Canada geese and white-fronted geese. You find almost all of these together. As they continue north, they will pass first the home of the mountain lion. Will they pass the home of the mountain lion, Jim, or the snowy owl?
Well, you know, I think it'll be the mountain lion this time, Marlin.
Well, I'll tell you, Jim, let's watch this old goose. I think he'll lead us to the country where they're going to next.
Oh, that's a beautiful flight.
Isn't that lovely? You're right, Jim, into the mountains. Here you can see the tops of the mountains in the Rocky Mountain section of the United States. This is a place where there are high mountain valleys and where the geese might set down, and if they do, they better stay in the water because old Puma, old mountain lion here, is one who would be happy to interrupt their flight on their way north.
I bet.
This is an animal that used to roam over almost all of the United States, but now is confined largely to the mountain regions of our west, and where it's almost invariably called mountain lion. It's the biggest of the big cats of this country. But here's another one, Jim. Here's the bobcat.
Oh, yeah.
And they, too, are found in the mountain regions. We have a fine pair of Colorado bobcats right here in our own small mammal house. This is a cat that's related to the lynx. He has tufts on his ears and a short little bob tail. These are animals that are long-legged and have big pads. They prey on rabbits and rats and mice and squirrels and ground squirrels and all that whole group of animals that you might see in the mountains. Even the young sheep, these are bighorn mountain sheep. The mother better guard the young ones because even bobcats would be interested in them. You know, the young come in the spring of the year. And the old males have the great curving horns of the bighorn Rocky Mountain sheep, like this grand old fellow here. At the base of the great mountains, you will find forests, vast areas covered with both deciduous and evergreen trees. Animals that live in the forest are largely dependent upon trees, either for food or shelter. Here's a skunk that is characteristic of the forest. Now, let's go over to him and take a look at this old man skunk, because he is... just hold him there until I can get a hold of him. And so, this is a forest-dwelling animal. But before we tell you the story, let's pause for a moment in our Zoo Parade program today for a message from our sponsor.
Friends, does your stomach talk back to you like this?
You ate too much. You ate too much. You ate too fast. You ate too fast.
Time to chew Beeman's Pepsin chewing gum, because Beeman's Pepsin aids digestion. No need to suffer from that dull, heavy after-eating feeling. Keep Beeman's handy. It's made especially to be chewed after meals. Beeman's Pepsin aids digestion. Aids digestion fast and pleasantly, too. You'll like the way Beeman's moistens your mouth and throat, sweetens your breath. It's a smooth gum, never tires you to chew it. So next time your stomach talks back to you...
You ate too much. You ate too much. You ate too fast. You ate too fast.
Follow your meals with delicious Beeman's. Beeman's is so good, and so good for you. Chew Beeman's Pepsin chewing gum.
Jim, you remember Sweet William, don't you?
I sure do. He's a fine guy.
Yeah. A good
Typical of
example,
forest, huh?
yeah, a good example of a skunk. And a skunk is a good example of an animal that is dependent largely upon the forest regions. Now, Sweet William, don't be going away. You just stay here, and let's see the stripe down your back and your long, fluffy tail. And let's see if we can find out something about him. Jim,
Why does he stay in the forest so much? That's what I wondered.
well, Jim, he needs the protection of the forest, and he's an animal that is just associated with the forest because of the animals that themselves need the forest. Some of the mice and the other creatures that he preys upon are animals that live near the forest. He also goes out into the fields, away from the forest, but likes to have the protection of a forested area or a semi-forested area.
Of course, he's got lots of good protection, hasn't he?
Oh, man, has he got a gas barrage. Really gives him protection. Not many animals will bother him.
Talking about protection, oh, there's another fellow who lives in the forest over there, and he's got plenty of protection, hasn't he, Marlin?
Yes, he has. I'll tell you, let's go over to see him.
All right.
This old boy over here is another true forest dweller, Jim. This fellow, as you say, is well protected here.
Different kind of protection, though.
Uh-huh. This old man Porcupine.
Sweet William, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Porky, are you going to be gentle and let us come up close to you today?
You mean let's not be sticky about this, huh?
Don't be scared. Porcupines are associated with the trees, Jim. They need the trees to climb because they go up the trees to get away from the other animals. And they also feed upon much of the buds and the shoots and the barks of lots of the trees. Would you want, for example, to turn around here, old boy, and let's see your head? No, you wouldn't.
Don't fall out of the tree,
Don't
pal.
fall down. You wouldn't like to do that.
I don't want to make him nervous. I want to back away. I want to ask you, there are lots of other animals that live in the forest, of course, besides skunks and porcupines.
Oh, yeah, there's quite a whole big group of them. Did you ever run into a family group of bears, for example, in the forest,
yeah,
Jim?
wonderful.
Well, bears in the forest are animals that you better look out for at this season of the year because this is the season when there are cubs around, or there will be very shortly. You see, the cubs are born about the first of the year. And then about March or April, the mother brings them out like this to teach them the ways of the world. But if you should run onto a little old bear cub like this, for heaven's sakes, don't try to pick him up because Mother Bear isn't far away. She hasn't deserted him. She's just watching from a distance and letting them try out their climbing ability. But she'd be on you in a minute if you tried to grab one of these babies. You know, springtime is the season of babies. Baby elk in some of the forested and mountain valley regions, which are ringed by trees up in the north and northwest part of the country. Mother elk is standing by, too, to watch after and take care of her baby. You better, they have a fine mother instinct here. The moose is another true forest animal, Jim. Here's a bull moose in a meadow in a forest here between the trees. And he is watched over by the little squirrel, another forest animal. You can't imagine a tree squirrel living any place but in the forest, could you?
No, that's right.
And the elk, or rather the moose, goes on down into the water and feeds on the water lilies. But he's dependent upon the forest themselves, the forest of the trees, because he eats bark. Here's a fisher, marten rather, that lives in the trees. And here's another one of the antelope chipmunks that live in this forested region. You know, there are more different kinds of chipmunks than this one, though. There's some that have a lot more markings, like this fellow. You see how thin the stripes are? Yeah, well, these are forest animals, Jim, and they feed on the products of the forest or are protected by the forest. These were some of the animals that our geese might have seen while flying over the peaks of the Rockies and the vast forest at the base of the mountains. But again, they'll be on their way to their final destination. The geese will finally arrive at the home of the snowy owl, way up in the Arctic. This old boy right over here, Jim.
It's sitting so quietly down there.
Yeah, he's sitting so quietly, but you know, if you get up too close to him, he'll be snapping his bill at you. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right, old boy. That's all right. We have him fixed up with a jess on his leg there, Jim, so that he can't fly clear away out here today. But here, even his color is suggestive of the Arctic.
White feathers and broken over shadow light.
But you know, when there is a scarcity of the animals up north that he feeds on, the lemmings and the owl, and the rabbits and so forth, the snowshoe rabbits, you get migrations of these owls down south. You get them coming clear down into Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, I've seen them once here in Illinois. I saw one. That's amazing.
Yes, sir. Well, this is an animal that is fully capable of living up there. He has very thick feathers, Jim, great protection against the cold, and a night prowler, as most of the owls are. Owls, the animal that would be prowling right out into this region of the North Arctic. Well, Mr. Goose, thank you for conducting us on the trip north and letting us see some of the animals that you see along the way. When you arrive in the Arctic, the snow will be starting to melt, and you will build your nest on one of the islands bordering one of the large lakes. Raise your young, and when fall comes, start your journey to the winter home in the south. You'll be joined by others like this big Canada goose.
Well, here's another big bird, Marlin.
Jim, what's that airplane doing in there?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you all about that in just a moment. Right now, I don't want to talk about birds, I want to talk about dogs. I bet you think dogs can't read. Well, just you watch this.
What's this? A dog that reads a menu? No, this little fella doesn't have to read. He can smell his way to a good dinner of kennel ration, the dog food packed with lean red meat. You know, dogs are natural-born meat eaters. They want and need meat. And that's why kennel ration is on the menu of more and more dogs every day. Kennel ration gives him the lean red meat he thrives on. Choice cuts of U.S. government-inspected horse meat for high-quality protein. Kennel ration's power-packed with dog health vitamins and minerals, too. And for your benefit, there's chlorophyllin to check his doggy odor. Everything, in fact, known to be needed for a glossy coat, sound teeth, happy disposition, and robust health. So feed your dog the meal he loves best, what he'd choose for himself if he could. Kennel ration, packed with lean red meat. Look for the U.S. government seal of inspection, your proof of pure, healthful dog food. Kennel ration.
Well, this big DC-7 is one of the flagships of American Airlines. It flies from coast to coast. And we've got it here today to remind us that we're going to fly on a American Airlines DC-7 from Chicago out to San Francisco. We're going to have a wonderful flight, a fast one, a comfortable one, and a scenic one on that American Airlines route out to the coast.
Yes, Jim. Next week, we're going to originate the Zoo Parade program direct from the San Francisco Zoo in Golden Gate Park. We're going to take our cameras there and show you some of the outstanding animals and some of the fine exhibits with animals that have been developed in this, one of America's outstanding zoos, the San Francisco Zoo.
Well, that's next week on Zoo Parade, folks. I hope you'll be with us when we go out to San Francisco. But right now, this is Jim Herbert saying goodbye for all of your animal friends here at the Lincoln Park Zoo. Zoo Parade has been presented by Beeman's Pepsin Chewing Gum. Follow meals with Beeman's. It aids digestion fast. And Dentine, the chewing gum that helps keep your teeth clean and white. Film used on Zoo Parade today was furnished by Richard Borden from his Wonders of the Wild series, Encyclopedia Britannica Film Services, Audubon Society, Ben East, Bill Everhart of Wildlife Film.